Yo, what's going on, everybody? We are back with another episode of the Surge Network podcast, and I got a special guest in the building today. Her name is
Katie O'Dell.
All right. What's going on? How are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah. How was the drive?
It's long. I'm sorry. I was a little bit late, but I'm here.
Yeah, it's all good. Well, listen, you're very pivotal in the city in the work that you do. Obviously, today, we're going to talk about, did I say tonight? Oh my gosh. I'm tired. That's what that means. But today we're going to be talking about sharing neighbor love to the vulnerable in the foster care system. And so before we get into all of that and all the nuances, all of that, just tell people a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. I'm born and raised in Arizona. Not a lot of people can say that.
You're a native?
I'm a native. My husband, too.
That is kind of strange.
I know. Most people are not, but I am.
Okay.
I have been longing to exit Arizona my entire life, and the Lord just won't let me. So we can talk about that in a different podcast.
Hold on, you would like to exit Arizona?
Well, I've always wanted to live somewhere else.
Oh,
that is just not the Lord's plan for me yet.
Give me two places that you would want to live if it wasn't Arizona.
The Pacific Northwest. I would like rain every day. And I would like no sunshine for at least a couple years. I could do this. People don't think you can do that. I can do this, I'm telling you.
Got it.
So yeah, just random tidbit. But yeah, I've been in Arizona my whole life. I've lived all different places across the state. And I have been in community-based ministry in the Valley in Phoenix for the last 25 years.
Wow.
And that's how I started in foster care, actually. But in that community-based ministry that I've always been a part of in local churches here in Arizona, it was out of that this was birthed. But it's out of that experience of being on staff at local churches and then caring for the vulnerable in our community across the spectrum of needs, that my heart really landed in this place of foster care. It wasn't something I ever foresaw coming, but that is how I got here.
Yeah, it's good. Well, as we talk about, foster care and sharing neighbor love, give us some of your passion, your heartbeat behind why you kind of got into that work, Yeah,
I think originally, and it's still part of my passion, but originally there was just a need in our city as often, that's what kind of wakes the church up is like an explosive need normally is what kind of starts to stir the questions. Hey, what's happening here? What's happening in my own backyard, right? And in my ministry work, I worked both globally and locally. And so I helped people mobilize and impact and experience needs of the vulnerable around the world and also here at home.
Where are the places around the world?
We did work in Africa and Romania.
Okay.
All over Africa.
Wow.
All over Romania. Some in the Middle East, in Turkey, in Iran, Iraq. We've done different works and trips that I've been a part of mission-wise in South America and Central America, just from a global perspective of taking people kind of around the world and working with partners, in different locations, even in India, different locations throughout the world, serving the most vulnerable in those communities. And then we also, did that local work here in Arizona. Most vulnerable communities, from homelessness to hunger to refugees to children, but really hadn't ever had a focus on foster care or children impacted by foster care. And so in 2012, Arizona really started trying to have an upward tick in their numbers, and more kids were kind of coming into care. And so there was a news report, as there always is, right? Like something makes the news and people kind of wake up to start to have the conversation. And the church I was at, we had already kind of started having a conversation about like, hey, here's an area where we could grow in. We hadn't even really done anything in working with, children in foster care, and just started exploring it. And it really kind of unfolded into this greater conversation about, what is the need? And what would it look like if churches worked together to find the need or to meet the need? And so in those early days, that's what kind of spurred it. We saw a need. The need was being publicized, that we had a foster care crisis in Arizona. Those were the words being said on the news, right?
A foster care crisis.
Yeah, and meaning what they meant by that point, and we still have it today, but what was really being said was like there were more kids waiting for families than the state had families to care for kids. And then the numbers really increased in that year. We've seen the numbers kind of play this game since then, but the numbers went from this kind of static 7,000 was what Arizona's number always had been, and they increased to over 10,000 really rapidly.
Wow!
And in that time, our economics as a nation were also kind of struggling. If you think of like 2012, that's when we're coming out of a recession, right? And we see that those things go hand in hand.
Sure.
That when families struggle with job loss and economics, we see abuse rise, and we see, people abuse drugs and alcohol because they're just the cycle just continues, right? So that's kind of where the conversation started, and that's what it did. It started with a conversation.
So it started with a conversation, but there's also a sense, like you said, that there was a problem, there was a need, problem, if you will. And actually, speaking of that, talking about Arizona, this is according to the Office of Governor Katie Hobbs. It says currently Arizona does not have enough foster families to care for children and siblings ages 6 and older. So it seems like this crisis that you're talking about, maybe there's been some things that kind of help alleviate that and whatnot. But like you said, it kind of fluctuates to a degree in terms of this crisis that's happening. From your perspective, why do you think that is?
Why do I think the crisis is, or why do I think we have such a great need for families?
Both. I like both.
Okay. Yeah. When we talk about kids who find themselves in foster care, I think we often mislabel kids in our mind, in our society. I think we kind of look past them. I think everyone has an empathetic heart when you use the word, when you talk about a child who finds himself in foster care. I think most people would be like, oh, that's so sad. I feel for that kid, but they don't feel any responsibility to that story, right? And I really think that if we analyze it well, I think children who find themselves in foster care are also the most invisible of our society, even though they're very well known.
Tease that out more.
Tease out the idea of invisible.
Yeah,
I think,
and the reason why, because it's like you say that it's such a crisis as you're saying, and even from the reports and stuff. But there's still a sense of invisibility. Like you said, there's an invisibility. I guess.
Yeah.
And
so I think when you look at child population numbers let's just look at Arizona. And I'm going to give you really rough stats. You see, I'm not looking at a phone. I'm not pulling up numbers.
We can always ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT can get these numbers for us now.
So I'm going to give you really rough numbers of this. But, there's roughly 1.5 million kids in Arizona under the age of 18. That's our rough state number.
Wow.
All kids.
That's in the foster care system?
No. In Arizona. That's our total child population in Arizona,
Got
1.5 million. And children who find themselves in foster care are less than 1% of that. So it's very small, the amount of kids who find themselves, when we talk about child populations, right? But those numbers, even though they're tiny, those kids are impacted with the greatest amounts of negative outcomes when we don't step in and have a part of their story to healing, to finding themselves on a different trajectory. So that's why I use the word invisible, because I think when I think of this kind of invisible generation, this invisible childhood that finds themselves in foster care, often people think, oh, we removed you, now the story's done. Or someone stepped in, and sometimes people even believe kids in foster care are bad kids, right? And it was by no fault of their own that they wound up in foster care. And unfortunately, foster care isn't always a dreamy story It is also still a really hard story for many kids when they come into it's because many of them don't land in a safe and loving family. Many of them don't land in a family that can help them heal from the trauma they experienced. And many of them end up in a group home in Arizona. And a group home isn't what God intended for children to heal in. He put us in families, right? Like he intended the family, he puts children in families, and he calls us as believers to be this family when a family is absent.
That's good.
And so that's why I like to use the word invisible, because I think we all can say, oh yeah, I've heard of kids in foster care. There's no one in America probably that would say, I've never heard that term. I would be shocked, honestly, to find that person. But I don't think people really know the plight of a child who finds themselves in foster care and the hardship of that and the hurt of that and the cycle of that. And for me, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about it, because of this history I had of working in community outreach, foster care is actually one of the only upstream ministries, if you will, that when we step into the lives of children who find themselves in foster care or impacted by the story of foster care, we can change massive outcomes to how many people end up in prison. We can change massive uneducation to teen pregnancies. Like by stepping into the life of a child who finds themselves in foster care, we change homelessness, we change all these giant numbers. When you survey those populations, there is a common trend amongst all of those populations, high trends, that they spent time in foster care. And I think if we rewind it, right, and we think, where do we go to stop this outcome? A lot of times we can look that it's by serving the children who find themselves in foster care better when they land there.
Gotcha.
Because we're turning on the faucet for these other outcomes that the church is focused on, those outcomes too, right?
Yeah.
But how do we stop it? How do we slow the faucet down? How do we turn back the dial so not as many kids are winding up homeless, in prison, uneducated, repeating the cycle with their own pregnancy, right? And they don't know how to care for a child. Addiction, like so much can be drawn back to that same child spent time in foster care, and we had an opportunity to change and impact the trajectory of their life. Yeah,
that's good. That's good. When it comes to everything that you're saying, are there any barriers because I'm thinking about the invisibility that you mentioned, but also think about, well, there has to be something that, leaders, churches, etc., being in the hands and feet of Jesus, sharing neighbor love, like there has to be ways that there's an involvement and a participation. Are there any barriers to that participation for some?
I think I need you to tease that out. What do you mean barriers? Like, what do I hear as people's barriers?
Yes.
Or what do I think are true barriers?
So for instance, like you mentioned the idea that some people don't feel like there's a responsibility that they need. They heard of the term foster care and stuff like that. They know it's out there, but they don't feel like a responsibility. Let's say that there's somebody that wants to be able to get involved in some form or fashion. Are there any barriers for that parent, that person, that leader, that church to get involved? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah. I think most of the barriers that people face are more their own barriers of why it's not right for them.
Okay.
And here's the thing. Like, I think that the people that are meant to be foster parents or adoptive parents to kids who come from trauma, they're special, uniquely made by God, called into this position. And I do think it's a calling. But I think we only find our calling through leaning into what is God asking me personally, in each of us, if you are a follower of Jesus, each of us leaning into what's my role in the story of foster care of the vulnerable child. And I think often we find ourselves, and this is a barrier, and just we don't want to live that selflessly, to ask the Lord, what is my part? Because we're fearful of the answer, you have to take care of this kid, right?
Yeah.
And And in my experience,
Yeah.
it's about discipleship. In my experience, it's not for everybody. And I'd be the first person to tell you it's not for everybody. And I'm after the very best. I want the very best for God's kids. I want those families that are those child whisperers, but we don't know that you're that until you explore the conversation between you and your wife, or if you're a single person with the Lord, like this is the mandate of Scripture, that we would step into this. And so to me, what that means is that everybody can do something.
Okay.
And the question is, what is it that God's asking you to do in this space?
Yeah. So that's profound what you said. You said this is a calling, but you also mentioned that this is not for everybody.
It's not for everybody, but everybody has a mandate to do something about it. So it's complicated, right? That's
Sure.
For us. This is why we work through local churches, because we think that it is a matter of discipleship. Because if everybody in a church service raise their hands and becomes it, a lot of them aren't gonna succeed at it, right? But what I want,
because they'll burn out,
yeah,
they'll get
or
frustrated.
They're just not. It's not their calling. They're not meant to do it.
Okay.
Mandated in Scripture, they're supposed to do something. I'm here to help you find out, what are you supposed to do for this vulnerable population, right?
Yeah.
So some people can be a mentor. Some people can wrap around a family and care for a family that did say yes, that does have that calling, but they need an army, a village to support them through that. So we all have a role to play in this story. We all have a part that to fulfill that mandate of Scripture. We all have a part to do. But maybe it's not necessarily having a bed in our home. Yeah. Does that kind of make sense? But this is where, you asked what were the barrier, this is where the people just break off the barrier. They think, oh, that's not for me. And they don't even explore it, in all honesty, right? They just
Because they may not care about it.
Yeah,
they may not,
exactly. Or it's just too scary.
Yeah.
It's too
risky.
Too risky. It's to somebody else's trouble. And my life's too chaotic. We have lots of reasons why we don't engage in those things out of protection for our own children. There's lots of reasons why we say no. And my heart is just like, oh, let's just see, what does the Lord have? Yeah. Like what is the big thing that God's asking you? And that's why we partner with pastors. Yeah. Because we do, I know I've said this 100 times now, we do think it's a matter of discipleship. It's a matter of listening to the Lord. It's a matter of leaning into Him. It's a matter of asking the question, hey, what is my role to impact this child, to live out this this piece of the gospel?
So you mentioned the word discipleship like 3 times.
I know. I like
about it. And I love discipleship. I think that's great. The idea of sharing neighbor love. What I'm hearing you say, that there is a equipping factor of leaders and churches that should be more educated, more aware of the foster care system. When you say discipleship, tease that out more in terms of what do you see that looking like, even with the work with AZ127. What does that look like to equip, to disciple churches, leaders, et cetera, in this area?
Yeah. So I think it starts, one, with just learning the basics.
Okay.
Right? So we equip churches just to even know there's a need. Kind of like I said, when we first started, we didn't even realize I kind of felt like, holy cow, how was I served this community for, at that point, 12 years? I'd been in the ministry of serving the community and hadn't really even focused on this. Did I know all the answers? Did I know about this? Yes. But had I dove deep into it? No. So that's a little bit what we've done, right, for churches and local leaders here, is try to equip them so they don't have to do the deep dive. I've kind of done the hard swim for them.
Got it.
And let them come to church leaders and say, hey, let me help equip you so that you can call people into action and you can live out this kind of biblical mandate as a church community. And in doing that, then we get to unpack the many different ways that people can get involved and the roles you can play, from small to big, but all transformation. So one of the things that I would say, I think this is a roundabout answer to your question, but one of the things I would say that is important to us in our ministry is that we're trying to help people that step into the space of foster care be transformative. I think discipleship is transformative,
Yeah.
not just transactional.
Mm.
And so when we have
Hold on, you got to pause right there. Okay. Pause right there. If we had the little, the on different things, they had the little buttons that they press that go, when you say like something that's really dope, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
That's that. So we got.
You want to unpack that a little?
I got to unpack that. We got to unpack that, Katie. So transformational versus transactional.
Yeah. So now again, remember, I came from serving on a church staff, right? And so, and it is very easy for churches, and comes from a good place. Please hear me. It comes from a good place to want to do a backpack drive or a Christmas gift drive or a shoe drive or a clothing drive. And yes, it's needed. So I'm not trying to dismiss that it's not needed.
Yeah.
But sometimes we end there. And that makes it just transactional.
Got it.
And it doesn't really transform lives. It doesn't transform the person who was a part of that. A little bit. They get a little, I feel good, right? They did something good with their money or they helped some way. But it doesn't tend to transform a life.
Got it.
Versus a transformational perspective is like, I'm going to give of myself, my time, my capacity, my being,
it costs more.
My wealth.
It costs more, yeah.
And I'm going to give that to you in a relational way.
Got it.
And so it is more transformational.
Got it.
It's
I love
longer
that.
term. It takes more. This is why discipleship has to be involved in that, right?
Amen.
Because I think when we are in our natural busy self, at least myself, transactional is way more easier. And I can squeeze out time to be transactional.
Got it.
But if I want to be transformational, it's a totally different ask of myself. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
And for a pastor asking that of their congregation, it's a totally different ask, right?
Got it.
For that whole church culture, but also for that individual to say, hey, these are transformational things. And I think that's what Jesus asks us to do when I look at how he asks us to care for the vulnerable and specifically the vulnerable child.
Yeah.
It's in this relational way.
Yeah, that's good.
It's in this transformational way that says, long term, I'm going to let you break my heart. I'm going to let you take from me what only the Lord can give back to me.
Yeah.
And that's a big cost. That's a big ask. And so I realize that the ask that my organization has of churches and individuals is not a simple ask, but I do think that the Lord is in it. I think it's a big ask. I think that Jesus is there. I think that
Amen.
It's part of the beauty of it.
Yeah. Katie, as we land the plane, first of all, thank you for the work that you do in AZ127 and the 25 years of work that you've done. It does not go unnoticed, and obviously is a huge need. As you look at on the horizon, 50 years from now, what do you envision the work that God has blessed you and your team to do, specifically sharing neighbor love, for the vulnerable in the foster care system? What do you see in the next 50 years? Or one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still have this crazy dream, and people tell me, it's too crazy. But I really do believe that the number of kids in Arizona that need homes, that we can tip the scales in Arizona. And I would love to see that it's the people of God that tip that scale, that there would be more families waiting to care for kids as they have a need than kids waiting for families to wake up to care for them.
That's good.
And so I would love for Arizona to be the first state in the nation that people said, oh man, their churches, they have changed this problem. The churches of Arizona stood up, and there are more families in Arizona, and they don't have a child welfare problem because the church stood up.
Wow.
And they're just waiting and ready. Not that we've solved abuse or we've solved neglect gosh, I wish we could do that, right? And I know our churches are working towards that too. Yes, we're eating the elephant, as they say, one bite at a time. But I think we can make these smaller goals where there is this tip in the scale, and I really think it's doable.
Yeah.
When I look at the number of churches just in Arizona, it's really doable for us to shift the scale. It's really doable. It's really doable for churches in Arizona to care for families who have lost their kids into this, and to break cycles of abuse and neglect, and to step in and say, hey, here's a transformational difference. We're going to care for your kid temporarily while we champion you to healing and health and changing your story in a transformational way. And then we want to see you reunited. Like that's the beautiful story that only people of God can do well.
Yeah.
Because that's the story of redemption that we've experienced ourselves,
That's
right?
good.
And
That's
so
good.
we've been
Absolutely.
given thousands upon thousands of chances to get it right. Like, let's offer that. There's this term used by this guy, Mike Foster, out of California, and it's called people of a second chance. And I love that story when I think about foster care, for birth families, for children who find themselves in foster care. Like, if we as Jesus followers are people of a second chance, like, we've got to be a part of that transformational story in the life of a vulnerable family who's lost their kids into foster care, and for those children who are in foster care. We can be that second chance because Jesus gave that to us.
That's good. That's good. Man, Katie, thank you so much. That was good. I think that's a good landing place right there. For those that are interested in the work that you do, etc., where can they find you?
Yeah. Find us online at AZ127.org. That's our name, Arizona 127. Comes out of James 127. Number one question I get, where's the numbers from? And I'd love to see you. You can email me. My email's katie@az127.org. I'd love to connect with you if you have any questions.
Excellent. Thanks for taking the time for chopping it up today. And for those that are participating on this episode, we want to say thank you as well for the Surge Network podcast. Grace and peace.